Provisions நம்ம கொண்டு சார். அவர் போட்டுறாரு சார். லெட்டரா பாருங்க. போட்டார் பவர் பாயிண்ட். ஃபர்ஸ்ட் பேஜ் போட்டாரு.
அப்ப இது வரக்கூடாது பாரு.
ஆஹா டைட்டில் சார் இது. இந்த ஃபர்ஸ்ட் பேஜ் இதுக்காக டைட்டில் வெல்கம்காக போட்டுருக்காரு.
10 பேர் தான் வந்திருக்காங்க சார். யூடியூப்
ஆமா யூடியூப் அது யூடியூப் போடுங்க. லிங்க் கொடுத்திருக்காரு. யூடியூப்
Questions about US visas and delegates participants நான் கேட்கறது புரியுதா? இந்த கொஸ்டின்ஸ் வந்து இப்போ வரவே கூடாது. start?
Yeah, sure. I'm ready.
Thank you. The United States of America is the most sought after destination for international business, education, and tourism. The worldwide system of US visas, except for emergency cases. Mr. Patabiram, can I request you to put your mic in mute, please?
Thank you.
Please. I would request you to put your mic in mute, please. Thank you. There we have Mr. Ramakrishna joining in. Ladies and gentlemen, in this backdrop, the Global Trade Driver is organizing this webinar on US visas, what to expect. How this is going to impact Indian IT services and other businesses with the US, whether it has the potential to boost the US economy and open up more jobs for US persons, or whether it will be a good campaign strategy for the forthcoming US presidential elections, are some of the interesting and important questions. We have a very distinguished members in our panel today. Our panelists for today's program include Mr. Ramakrishna. Mr. Ramakrishna is the Managing Director of Electronic Systems Private Limited and Chairman, CIA Andhra Pradesh branch. A successful technology businessman, Mr. Ramakrishna is instrumental in positioning Electronics as one of India's smart solutions company. Backed by rich research and development, Electronics is now a leading provider of smart solutions for railway signaling, smart cities, smart buildings, and industries. Welcome, Mr. Ramakrishna. Then we have
Thank you.
welcome, sir. Then we have Mr. Paul Robichaud. Paul is the managing partner of the consulting firm GPR International. Paul brings to the table rich knowledge and experience about Indian and US markets. He is also the chief representative in India for the Society of Women Engineers. Welcome, Paul. Ladies and gentlemen, the keynote speaker today is Mr. Sendil Kumar, Managing Attorney of Murthy Immigration Services, a leading US law firm in India and an affiliate of the famous Murthy law firm based in the US. With over 18 years of experience in consular matters relating to US immigration laws, offering assistance with the entire spectrum of immigrant and non-immigrant US visas. Mr. Sendil is a very distinguished authority in the subject of US visas. Welcome, Sendil. Thank you for accepting our invitation to the event today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Venkat.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we get on with this interesting webinar, we understand that some of the top technology companies in the US, including Amazon, Apple, Google, among others, are supporting a challenge to President Donald Trump's restrictions on foreign workers. Those US companies are arguing that the temporary visa bans will damage US firms, and they are supporting the lawsuit which was filed last month by major US business associations, which included the National Association of Manufacturers and American Business Association, the US Chamber of Commerce. The brief argued that the visa restrictions, which were announced in June, will hurt US businesses. They also say that it can do irreparable damage to American businesses and further hurt the already struggling US economy. Facebook reportedly said the move to highly skilled talent out of the US will make America's recovery even more difficult. Apple CEO Tim Cook wrote on Twitter that he was deeply disappointed by the new proclamation. Amazon, which reportedly received more than 1,000
Venkat, one moment. I can hear an echo when you're speaking. The voice is not very clear. We can hear an echo. Is that something that you can know about it?
I think I'll have to request all the participants to go to mute before we request Mr. Ramakrishna to give the inaugural note. That's going to be in the next minute or so. So with this, ladies and gentlemen, with this introductory note, we move to the program. I have pleasure in requesting Mr. Ramakrishna, Managing Director, Electronics and Chairman CIA AP, for his welcome address. Over to you, Mr. Ramakrishna.
Good morning to all of you. Good evening to all of you. Thank
Good evening to
you
you,
for
sir.
giving me the opportunity to share some of my thoughts with all of you. The greatest danger in the time of turbulence is not the turbulence. It is the act with yesterday's logic. That's what Mr. Peter Drucker said. Now the challenges are too many for the entire world. One is the pandemic, that is a corona pandemic, is creating a lot of challenges for the Indian industry, not only Indian industry, across the world. The challenges are going to be too many. One is the customer requirements are getting changed and the customer sentiments are changing. And the other side is going to be the way the manufacturing or the production activities or the service activities are also getting impacted because of the manpower or the machineries. On the other side, getting a raw materials for the industry is also biggest challenge. So with all that, now the other dimension which we are all started seeing in industry from last maybe 4 or 5 years is the industry 4 technologies. Because of industry 4 technologies, the entire dimension of the industry, especially IT scenario, is getting changed. So with the help of IoT and industry 4 technologies, machine learning and analytics and robotics and all these technologies, and given a different dimension for the entire dimension of the industry. So by taking that into the clue, what are our challenges from the US or any other countries where the migration are happening in the world? So one of the things is some of the students and the people who want to go to the US to get the higher studies and learn well, there is one dimension. The other dimension is for the people who want to go to the other states is to settle there. These are the two types of people which will be going for a higher education. They may be getting impacted by multidimensionally. Today's corona and other days, how the Trump is taking the actions and the protectionism is happening. The other is maybe the people who are migrating to get into the jobs in the US, especially the skilled manpower and all that. That's one dimension. Another is that is the service industries which we are putting their manpower in other part of the world for doing their work on the shore. These are the areas where is getting a more impacted because of multidimensional direction. Now, what is that which we have to look into that? So today, some of the people which we after the corona is talking, industry 4 technologies is going to be preponed by at least 5 years because of this pandemic. That means the new technologies is going to take place in the entire world. Now, India, we are all placed in the situation. That is where the real challenge is. So one is the skills, or the capabilities rather. Now what the customer is looking from all our world is now the value, especially from last 5-6 years when we are discussing with many of the customers, people are talking what is that value we are able to bring on the table rather than routine activities which is easy to do in the industry. That means the biggest challenge today is how we create the value, that means how we identify the value and how you create the value, how you deliver the value and scale up and refine. This is the value dimension which is going to be the bigger dimension. Other than to create that value, what type of capabilities we should have? The capabilities, Dr. rightly said, the mindset plus practice into technology lead to the capabilities. Unlike previously, by knowing certain technology and skills is going to solve the problem. But today, in my opinion, or the people's opinion, we need to relook into all our mindsets plus the practices along with the technologies. This is only going to improve the entire dimension. So for that, what type of things which we are looking and all that. Unfortunately, in the Indian scenario, all of us start developing or learning the things because of fear. especially the young generation or the even old generation also, we are all learning or developing our skills and capabilities to, if we don't do well, I may not have better life. That's where with the fear we'll be learning. But that may not work basically. The people get motivated to do the things because of fear. Other side is money, maybe power and the recognition. These four dimensions may not lead to a better results today, especially all the new technology companies are looking whether the people want to work with the purpose, whether they have autonomy in thinking and the mastery in the activity what they are doing. So by taking that into the direction, what type of new changes is going to come, especially the bigger IT companies, now they are talking about work from home. That means anybody will be able to work from any part of the world. That means there will be totally some new dimensions may emerge into the things. Now, I am not sure how the new dimensions and the new ways of looking into the directions of the industry and all that is going to be bigger question mark. I am not a expert in how the visas and all this thinking and how the industry is going to look at the US government is looking at, because even if a simple example is I was rejected visa multiple times to the US, especially around 2000. Only one point I put in my visa is I am a postgraduate from IIT Chennai. That made people started thinking I won't come back, though I am running the industry with more than 200 people at that point of time. So this is a new dimensions are the challenges which we never know how we get visas for America. Even still I have a lot of questions in that direction. I never understand what type of say the directions the US visa will be get. Sometimes we are in a chit chat with American consulates in when they are in CA and other forums, we ask how you are able to give the visa. We feel many people who get the visa and who doesn't get the visa, we never understand any rationale in that. So this is some of the real challenges from the grassroots level, I feel, because sometimes we found some people get visa without background and many things happens. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my thoughts. Thank you. All the best.
Thank you, Mr. Ramakrishna. Mr. Ramakrishna's speech had a very interesting note. He wants to know the rationale behind which some of the visas are given, or the rationale behind which some of the visas are refused. Perhaps Sendil will be able to throw some light on the rationale part. Now, I have pleasure in requesting Mr. Paul Gobbleton. I request other participants kindly in the mute mode, please. Over to you, Paul. I now request Paul for his special address. Paul, please.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, thank you, Venkat, for having me today. It's a pleasure to speak to all of you. And, it's obviously the current environment we're in now is very challenging. But like all things, when we have grand changes like we've had, there's also opportunities, I believe. And so I'd like to talk a little bit more about those opportunities. You mentioned the IT services and what effect the current environment is having on those right now. The one thing is the IT industry is doing better than a lot of other industries at this point. People in communications, people with different social media platforms, people with IoT. There's still a lot of areas. Google's doing well, Facebook's doing well, Microsoft's doing well, Infosys is doing well. So many of these companies are doing okay in spite of the current environment we're in. And so how does that impact the U.S. climate? Well, obviously everybody's keeping an eye on the election, and it's a common belief that if Trump does not win, that the opportunities for more H-1B visas will be there. And so it's looking right now like that might happen. And ultimately, though, even though they're saying they're clamping down, travel is clamped down by every country across the world right now. But I do believe that it will start opening up slowly, and eventually, I hope within a year or so, things will be back more to normal, where people are traveling in larger numbers, and especially traveling for work. Many of the companies, the MNCs that I talk to here in India, talk about the fact that they're restructuring as well, and that many people are working from home. But most of the large companies I speak to, their preference would be to have most people come to office. There may be a certain percentage that they will have the opportunity to work from home, and they may rotate that sort of thing. But almost all of them I speak to talk about the fact that they want to get people back in the office. And I have to believe that a similar situation will occur in the US. And with that, the demand is still going to be there. So the demand for talent is going to be there. And if the talent is here in India, they'll either be utilizing them there here in India, or they'll be utilizing it in the US. But I believe the job opportunity and the growth will still be there. And so again, a lot depends on the next election. But even with Trump, then they still are giving so many H-1B visas because all of the big companies are requesting it, and they're putting a lot of pressure on him to keep business rolling, to be able to have the companies reopen again. And so yet it is certainly an impact right now, and probably will continue to be so over the next few months. But when it comes to other types of business, when we're talking about politics, the current situation with China now, so whether you're in any type of sector, I think there's opportunities there. I think all of you have read the papers and have seen that Foxconn is putting $1 billion into India and manufacturing many of the Apple phones that were being produced in China before. So what does that mean? That means to me that, again, there's opportunity here in India, and there's opportunity for the U.S. companies and India companies to work together in terms of being able to create production here and to be able to create services here as well. And because let's face it, there's no other economy large enough to scale up and take up the vacuum that China is creating right now. And it's not going to happen overnight. The amount of productivity coming out of China, you can't just put it somewhere else. You have to create the demand, you have to create the infrastructure, and you have to get the talent in place in order to replace those products. But it appears that China has taken a big hit over the last 6 months to a year in terms of their reputation internationally. And of course, we know that there's always been tensions, and there's tensions on the Indian border now, and distrust is there. So my point isn't to dwell on the negative that's happening. My point is to dwell on the fact that I believe that will create opportunity. And it'll create opportunity with U.S. businesses. And so how do we take advantage of that? Well, one of them is the reason that we're all here today is to talk about the process of getting into the U.S. And we have experts here that know more about that process and what it takes for an Indian to get access. I know that the earlier speaker, he's talked about the fact that he got rejected for a visa. But our experts will tell us today that there are steps you can take that will increase your probability of getting a visa when you need that. And if you create if you show the proper need and you present it in the correct way, visas are available. And so that should be said as well. And so, and when the last point I'd like to make is that when you have the opportunity to travel to the U.S. and meet with businessmen or businesswomen in the U.S., take the time to do the proper research before you go. Do the research on the company, understand it well, so that if you have the opportunity opportunity to communicate with them, they have an understanding that you know about them, you know about their product, and you have an idea on how you might be able to help them. Because ultimately, doing business together is about solving problems. And hopefully, again, for manufacturers in particular, I have a soft spot for manufacturing myself. I've done manufacturing here and I've done manufacturing in the US as well. And I believe that it's important to have manufacturing as a base industry in any country in order to be healthy. And India still is a low-cost manufacturer. And if there's a vacuum that China is creating, I think Indian businessmen will do well to go to the US and seek out those people that are looking for other suppliers to fill the void that may be there because China, or to create a new demand, irregardless of whether China is in the. Those of you who've done business in the US find it a little bit different. And I've been the fortune of living in India and working here for 15 years. And I've also started my career in the US, and I had 25 years of working experience there. And one of the main differences is the approach. And here, a lot of it depends on who you know, more so sometimes than the product. Whereas in the US, they're a little bit more open to looking at something if it makes sense. But the presentation should be geared toward their sensibilities. And by that, what I mean is you should be clear about your intention of what you can do for them. People that say they can do everything will miss out. You have to identify the area that you specialize in. Make sure that they understand that you're confident in your abilities to produce that product or that group of products. Make sure it's a good fit for the people that you're talking to. Speak clearly and to the point in terms of what you can do, how you can do it, when you can do. And when you communicate, please do so on a timely basis. If you talk to someone today, make sure that next email goes out tomorrow. If they ask for a sample, make sure you deliver it in the time that you say you can deliver it. You know, these are small things, but to consumers in the US, they're very important. And even small things like if you do get to the point where, like now, many companies, when you go, especially from a manufacturing standpoint, and you approach a US company, a lot of times the first thing you have to do is go online, fill out a form, and tell them about your company and about what you do and what your capabilities are, especially larger companies. Smaller companies don't have that type of a system because larger companies get a huge number of inquiries on a regular basis, and they have to have a way of weeding out the ones that aren't important to them. So make sure that when you fill out that paperwork, again, it's very clear. You're clear about what kind of product and service you can offer, and there is a match. And then once you get to that point to where you submit that paperwork and they give you an opportunity to quote or to give more information, again, do so on a timely basis and all of that. And once you get through that hoop, then typically what happens is if you get a chance to speak to someone, then you can tell them a little bit more in depth about what you have that can be of interest to them. But also use that time to make sure you use the research that you've done on that company to ask intelligent questions about their business, about where they purchase, where they source, why they source from the people they do, and find out the answers to those questions before you go on a total sales pitch. You know, sometimes what happens, and I started my career in sales, so I made all these mistakes myself. And a lot of times people, when they're approaching a company, they tend to sell on their product before they know what people want. And my one suggestion would be, please avoid that. Your initial talk should be a little bit about what you do in a very concise way, what your company does, and what's your basic product line. But then you want to switch right away into what are you doing? What are you buying? Why are you buying what you're buying? And then you can start to tailor it to what their response is and say, yes, I need this and I need it in this amount of time. I'm currently buying in Indonesia, but I would like a second source, right? So then you've got information from which to say, you know what, we do have that product. We have experience shipping to the US, and I think we can fill that void. And so those are my recommendations under those circumstances. So I think I've used up about 12 minutes, and so I'll leave it at that. And whatever, even if we don't get to them here, if they would like to forward them to you and I can help you out a little bit, I'm glad to do so. So thank you all for your time today, and I'll look forward to the rest of the presentation.
Venkat, I think you're muted. Venkat?
Senthil, am I audible now?
Yes, you are.
Yeah. Thank you, Paul, for that very insightful address. I think Paul made some very interesting observations. I would like to single out three very important observations that Paul made. One thing was, Paul said that these are times this is not only crisis, but there are opportunities now. I think that statement really stands out, and businesses should look out for opportunities. The second thing that Paul said, which made a lot of profound meaning, was about the China factor. While most Indian businesses are happy about businesses coming from China, we need to make sure that we create the infrastructure. We need to make sure that we have the talent in place so that we are able to make use of the China opportunity. Third one, I've had the opportunity of listening to Paul on earlier occasions. Paul is a terrific motivator. So Paul made a great point when he said that businesses need to do their homework properly, need to make sure that they communicate in a timely manner, need to make sure that they understand the needs. And as he rightly put, business is something that where mutually we solve each other's needs. Thank you so much, Paul, for that very insightful address. Senthil, over to you, Senthil. We are all waiting, and please let us know how you would like to start. So we have some questions for you, which I think we will have after you make a presentation and after you make a speech. That can be followed by those questions which we have received from some of the delegates. So over to you, Senthil.
Thank you, Venkat. Thank you for the opportunity, to address this webinar today. And thank you, Mr. Ramakrishnan and Mr. Paul. It was good to hear some positive note to the beginning, which much needed in this pandemic. Initially, when Venkat told me that, hey, Senthil, I want you to talk about visas and, the different types of visas and business and H and L visas, I said, hey, Venkat, first, let's, talk about the situation, what has been prevailing from March of, 2020, which has changed the whole world, our perspective towards everything, including immigration. So the consulates have been closed from the 16th of March. So I thought from that time up till now, what has happened in terms of the consulate and in terms of the different presidential proclamations and the executive orders that have come our way, and what we can expect moving forward. So irrespective of the fact that a lot of restrictions have been put in by the presidential proclamation, the consulates have remained shut for most part of, this year from March 16th when they first closed the regular operations, and 20th they stopped accepting, the Dropbox applications. So from then until now, the consulates have remained closed, and they have been, only addressing emergency visas and providing some services for the U.S. citizens, including repatriating many of the U.S. citizens who are stranded here and away from the family. So that is what has, that is the only thing that has been happening. And on 10th of August, the consulate actually, the visa application centers, and there are 6 drop-off locations, they have been open primarily to return the passports which have been processed, before the closure during the pandemic. So mostly these the initial phase, that is what is going to happen. So I'm going to just give a brief overview of what has happened until now, including the various president proclamations and what restrictions they have. And since there is no restriction on the application of business visas, maybe I will talk about the do's and don'ts for the business visas as we go along, because one or two people already put some notes about they're requesting information about the business visa. So we can talk about how to best present it, and including Mr. Ramakrishnan said that his visa was refused and he didn't have a clue as to why it was refused, and a few are getting it. So it's important that they know about the procedure to apply for the visa. So I'll talk about that also briefly. Okay, so that's basically what I intend to do during the next 20 minutes or so. I'll just put a timer so that I don't overuse my time. And yes, so what we will do is see from after the pandemic started on March 16th, as I told you earlier, the consulates were shut down, and the 20th they stopped accepting the Dropbox applications. So whatever were taken in, some of them were processed and returned before the end of March. So people had the visas by then. But unfortunately, by around the same time, the travel restrictions came in, and even though they had a visa, many of them couldn't travel back to the US. Okay, so there are two types of visas, basically immigrant and non-immigrant. So what happens is when immigrant visas are issued, within a period of 6 months, they have to travel. Most visas are issued for a period of 6 months, and within that, they have to travel. So a lot of people were not able to travel within the 6-month duration because of the travel restrictions. So those travelers have to apply for a new visa, again. And they, if the medicals have expired, then have to go for a new medicals. And if the police clearance certificates valid for 1 year, which is past that, they have to again obtain the police clearance certificate, and then they have to get the visa and travel, freshly issued for another duration of 6 months. Also what happens was, like, as soon as the VACs were open, a lot of people have called asking, okay, can I use the Dropbox and stuff like that? But at this point of time, our understanding is they do not, because even we called up the help desk and checked, they are not accepting any fresh applications. It's only they are returning the passports and applications which were processed, prior to the closure of the consular services. Some time ago, something similar to this had happened with Bangladesh, and we had contacted the consul general there, and he has also told that when they initiated the operations, they were only trying to return the passports and cases that were processed earlier, and they were not very clear as to when the regular operations would resume. And first, they will be addressing only the immigrant visas and US citizens, and slowly they'll be processing the non-immigrant visas. This is what we heard from the Consul General in Bangladesh some time ago. And I presume it will be the same with India as well. Apart from this, the interview dates have opened up in some of the consulates. If you, in Delhi and Hyderabad, some dates were available from October onwards, and some are available in 2020 February. So people who have to travel to the US, if they have to schedule an appointment, they can keep looking into the US travel docs and schedule the appointment, because always when an earlier date is available, they can take in the earlier date. So it's important that they monitor it and schedule the first available appointment, not wait, for the dates they really want. And we don't expect the operations to resume before October. From what we understand, most likely the regular operations may come into effect from 1st of October. It's only our expectation. There is no official confirmation or news on that at this point of time. All through the lockdown period, the U.S. consulate has been, providing services for the U.S. citizens, including, as I told you, for repatriation and any other emergency services that they require. And also, if somebody has to travel to the U.S. on medical grounds or for a funeral, they were available. And now, if students are within 60 days of their start date on the I-20, they can, approach when they log into the US Travel Docs website, there is an option for them to request for an emergency appointment. They could make a request for an emergency appointment if they're within the 60-day period. So apart from this, US green card holders, permanent residents, are not, when they travel out of the country, they're supposed to get back to the US within 1 year unless they have a re-entry permit. So there are many, US permanent residents who are stuck in India and they are not able to get back because of the lockdown, right? So again, they have to qualify for something called as an SB1 returning resident visa. That's the only way for them to get back into the US. Starting April 22nd of 2020, there have been a lot of presidential proclamations, one after the other. First, President Trump said he's going to put a pause on issuance of certain immigrant visas for a period of 60 days. Then he said, after 60 days, they'll review and either extend it or they'll decide on what to do about it. There was an exception, like if they're the spouse of a US citizen or a child of a US citizen, they were still given the visas, but then the rest of it, they were not eligible for, visa. But this proclamation, again, I feel that did not have much of an impact because anyway, the consulates are not working. Even as of today, as we are talking, the consulates are not working. So whether there is a ban or not, irrespective of that, people have not been able to apply for the visas and travel. So this is more like a, political motivated, because he wants the citizens to, the US workers to believe that, okay, he's doing something to protect them. But then in reality, the visas have already, not been issued for so long. And this does not really have any impact because only if the consulate is functional, then this comes out. And these proclamations, thankfully, has not affected people who are already in the US. Mostly it affected only people outside of the US. And so that is all the more reason for us to believe that, there is something behind what has, these proclamations. Following this, again, there was another proclamation which came into effect on June 24. And he extended the ban on immigrant visas until the end of this year. That is December 31st of 2020. And apart from that, he also put a pause on issuance of certain H, L, and certain J visas also. So he said, and that came into effect on June 24. And there were some exceptions to it. Initially, it said that anybody has a valid US visa as on June 24th, they are not bound by this. Somebody who's already in the US on the date of proclamation came into effect, they are not bound by this. And it also was not clear whether the dependents can apply for the visa. If the H-1B holder is in the US, and which means that the proclamation is not going to affect them, but can the dependent travel to the US? That clarity was not there. So it was a lot of confusion for many, US workers and their dependents who were in India. Following this, they followed up with another proclamation, which, a clarification basically. And then they said that, this applies to, they expanded the scope of this proclamation. Basically, they said only if you had a H or L visa or a J visa earlier on June 24th, you will be eligible for the exemption. Otherwise, you're not. Because first they said any visa, then they clarified that it's only for H and L or J visas. If you already held it on that particular day, then you're not bound by the proclamation. Or if you are in the United States already, then you're not bound by the proclamation. Which means that if somebody is working in the US and the petition got expired, they can always file for an extension. Similarly, if you're in the US on F1 status, they could have filed for a change of status and they can start working on 1st of October. So all of those, there's no effect at all. And only if they're outside of in the US, see, for example, people had come for a holiday when the consulates closed, they were not able to apply for and get the visa. And so their visas would have expired. Though they had a valid petition, they couldn't have gone back because they couldn't apply for the visa. But those people have to wait until December 31 to get back into the US. Okay, so and also what happens is I'm just so now, following this, there have been a lot of lawsuits that have been filed, including the large the multinational companies have filed, because this is going to crumple the US economy, because you need the entire system to keep rolling. You need H-1B workers to spend the money, because they're the ones who probably spend a lot of money in the US. So they need their economy to keep rolling. Okay, so if they're going to restrict the H-1B workers, it's really not going to help the US economy. So there are certain works which can be done only by specialized people who got that expertise. It cannot be filled in by an American worker. But unfortunately, this fact is not looked into. And but there have been lawsuits that have been filed seeking relaxation of this rule, and that they should roll back this law. But we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. So apart from this, what happens is like, when I talk about the exceptions, though the restriction came in, there was some clarity that is given that there are certain people are exempted from this proclamation. As I told you, people who are in the US as of June 24, they are exempted. People who had a same visa as on June 24 and still outside of the US, they are still exempted from this. Dependents of people, the H4 or L2 dependents or J2 dependents of the primary holder, if they are exempted, if the person is in the US and the spouse is in India, the spouse can apply for a H4, or the dependent child is in India, the child can apply for a H4 visa. So that clarity was not available earlier. Now they are given that clarity. So if you are one of those, persons who are looking to apply for a dependent visa, wherein your primary applicant is still in the US, you can apply, under this category. So apart from this, like people who are working in COVID-related, areas, wherein if they are going to help in the detection of COVID or prevention or the treatment or in their manufacturing of any of those equipment, those people are also exempted from this. So we'll have to make a case. And once the consular officers at their discretion think that yes, this is a valid case, then they fall under the national interest exception. Similarly, if you're going to contribute to the U.S. economy and it's going to help build it up in a big way, then you can again write to them, and on a case-to-case basis, if they feel that yes, this person will qualify, they will give their exception and they will accept the application and process it. So for this, whether we need to wait for the regular operations to start, or can you apply even when the consulate is only providing emergency services, there is lack of clarity. But I would recommend that you should make an attempt, because anyway you don't have anything to lose. So you can make a case saying that you are falling under the national interest exception, and if you are going to contribute to the betterment of the U.S. citizens, why not get the visa right away? So you should ask them for an expedited processing, and unless you try, you won't get it. There is a saying in Tamil like, so which means that unless you ask for it, you're not going to get it. So you have to make sure that you make that attempt. And then, we don't have really anything to lose, because we're going to be honest, we're going to be presenting all the facts, and we're going to request for it. Apart from this, because of the COVID, many universities moved to online classes, okay, because they do not want to risk the safety of the children, so they moved to the online classes. But what the ICE, that is the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, they said was, okay, if you don't have to attend regular classes, then why do you have to be in the US? We're going to check all the students out of the US. Then following this, Harvard and MIT filed a lawsuit, and they came to a compromise. And then after the compromise, what they said was, if you are already in the US and you have been attending the classes, then if it's moved to an online class system, then they're continuing students, so they can continue to be there in the US. But if you're here in India, if you're a student who's listening to this, and if you're in India and your school offers 100% online classes for the first semester, you can't travel. A visa will not be issued, and even if you have a visa, you'll not be permitted to enter the US, because at the port of entry, they're going to turn you back. That is, the ICE has clarified that that is applicable only for continuing students and not for initial entry students. And you have to make sure that the school has a combination of online and in-person classes. Only then you will be able to enter the US, pursuant to a student visa. And similarly, if you already have a business visa, whether I can enter, yes, you can enter. Tourists have also been traveling back and forth. Right now, they established some bubble transport to various cities. So if you're able to get onto those flights, you can travel, and there is no problem at all. And sometimes you may be subject to the quarantine once you get into the US, but barring that, people are able to travel. And apart from this, there is the furlough of the USCIS, because the funding has not been there, and the Trump administration does not seem to be very keen to get the funding for them to keep them rolling. So it is very unfortunate, but as of now, at least till August 31st, they're going to be functioning. But the fate of the mass furlough following August 31st is we have to wait and see what happens. And also, the President Trump's administration has said that he's going to have a major overhaul of the immigration, the work visas. Okay, so he said that only exceptional ability people with a lot of salaries are going to come. So his focus seems to be, see, first what he said was he's going to only target immigrants, who are in the country without proper documentation. Okay, but he made the policy so tight that he wanted to make every proper immigrant into an illegal immigrant and chuck them out. That is how difficult he's made it for the visa, immigration process. And so right now he says he's going to make it so tight that it's going to bring in only people who have exceptional ability or for the work visa program. And also we think that he's going to bring raise the bar for the salary so that it becomes so much that it practically doesn't make sense for people to bring foreign workers into the US. So we hope that doesn't happen, but that's what it looks like that's where we are heading, unfortunately. But we'll have to wait and see. And earlier in January, what happened was there was an order which said that birth tourism, because a lot of people used to travel to the US to have a child there, because once a child is born in the US, you get a US citizenship, and then later on, after the child becomes 21, the parents are eligible for a immigrant visa based on the fact that the child is a US citizen. So a lot of people used to do that. And so effective January 24, there has been a restriction on this. If the visa officer suspects that you're going for birth tourism, they are going to refuse the visa. And the regulations are also being modified to include the specific instructions to the visa officers, adjudication officers. And on August 3rd, as recent as August 3rd, there has been an order from the Trump administration, President Trump's administration, wherein the federal contracts should not go to foreign workers. So a lot of multinational companies employ people and they put them on projects wherein they work at various government projects, federal projects. So now the Trump administration has indicated that it is not possible anymore. You cannot work in any of those projects. And also, if you are going to send a H-1B worker to a work location and you're going to displace the American workers, then you can't send them there. So again, that is another thing that the Trump administration has passed on as recent as 3rd of August. There's a major overhaul going on, and I think if any other president wouldn't have spent so much of time on every day thinking about immigration. So every day we wake up to see, oh my God, what is the news today? And also they made some new restrictions on that A4, which is like for potential public charge, if somebody is going to migrate to the US, whether they'll become a public charge. So there are some regulations that have come into effect with that as well. So all around there have been a lot of restrictions, and also the COVID situation has helped them to delay the visa issuance process. And in the recent last couple of days, we've seen that some passports being sent back, for additional information because whatever information was submitted about 6 months ago, almost in March, may not be valid, adequate even now, right? Because it's so if their cases was taken in before that, you should expect some information from the consulate to ask you for additional information before they process, the cases. And if you're planning to travel to the US on a business visa, I would recommend that you prepare everything and keep everything ready. And because take the first available, visa, so that it is, you're ready when the consulate opens to travel. And we also, I just noticed a question, somebody said that there was about 2.6 years, the 221G was pending. So I wonder why it's been pending for so long. Usually it doesn't take so long. So if that is the case, we should try, see if there is any way we could expedite that. And also, people who have stuck here, they should consider a class action suit against the government, because a lot of times we, Indians have the mentality that we can't sue the US government. But if you see the recent trend, including for the H-1B workers, they've been, fighting against the US government and winning the cases. So that way, it is that at least that much we can do with the US government. If they're not being very reasonable, then we can fight the case and then see, for example, even the student visas, they filed a case and then they arrived at a compromise. And even for this, the A4 restriction, which I said about the public charge, again, the case has been filed, and then, that some courts have in New Jersey have, put some restrictions. So a lot of things, it is possible. There are looking, you have to look at the opportunities, you have to look at the solutions rather than looking at the problem and then just impasse and waiting for it. You have to look at how best you can overcome those impediments and travel. So that is what I would recommend, you're doing. And whenever you apply for a visa, Mr. Ramakrishnan said that, some people get the visa, some people don't. It is important. See, there are a few things, factors which, to be considered. First, we have to make a very clear, unambiguous application. See, what we are, what we hold, the visa officer will not know, but it's like a blank slate. So if you don't present what we are and what we do during that 1 or 2 minutes, that is given at the interview, then the officer may not know, why we would come back and why we are going to the US. So it is important to make sure that you present all the factors to the visa officer and make them, help them make an informed decision. Lack of communication is one of the most common reasons why a visa is refused, because unless the visa officer is convinced that you'll come back or you're going for a purpose authorized by law, they are not going to approve a visa. So this is what, we really need to focus on when you're applying for a visa. You have to be very honest and transparent, and we have to make sure that we present all our positives. And sometimes if they ask you, okay, see, if let's assume you're a retired person applying for a visa, if they ask you, what is your pension? If you don't have a pension, if you just say, no, I don't have a pension, but if you have income from other investments that you have, if you have own houses from where you get to rent, you should tell them that. Otherwise, they will not know. If they say that I don't have a pension, that's all they know, because they're asking you a specific question, do you have a pension? And you're telling them, no, you don't have a pension. So that's about it. So, but they will not know that you have other sources of income. So it's important for you to communicate beyond what they're asking for. The reason they're asking for that question is because they to see what additional information or, whether you have an income here. So you have to make sure that you have to understand the purpose or intent behind the question and provide answers to make sure that you overcome that. That's very important. Venkat, I think my time is almost up, so I would be happy to address any questions, or if there's anything specific you would want me to talk about, I can do that too.
Thank you, Sandhu. That was a very comprehensive presentation. Can I request Mr. Sudhakar at Putti Sri Ramalu College? Sudhakar, please.
Yes, sir.
Sudhakar, if you can please help us by putting up that slide which has the questions from some of the delegates, so that we can run through those questions, and there are few other questions also from some of the participants.
Can you see it, sir?
Yeah. So, Sudhakar, can you move to the first question, please? The next slide.
Just hold on a second, sir.
Yeah. I think Mr. Ritesh is logging off because of low battery. We will get in touch with you.
I think Mr. Ritesh is one who put the question initially. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Sudhakar, we are ready. Sandhu, the first question is from a gentleman, Praveen, from Bengaluru. Something very basic that we have seen at almost every other visa program that we have been organizing. Does a US visa guarantee that I can enter the US?
Okay. So that's a good question, because see, visa is different from entering the US. Okay, so visa is nothing but a document which permits you to present it to the carrier and board a aircraft or other vessel, which permits you to go to the port of entry and knock on the doors. Just ring the bell. Okay, that is all it does. Okay, so at the so it does not guarantee you entry into the United States. So any visa for that matter only allows you to board a flight or any other vessel which takes you to the port of entry, where the CBP official will decide whether or not to let you into the country and for how long. So all of those decisions are made at the port of entry by a CBP official. Not so the visa does not guarantee entry into the US.
Thank you, Sindhu, for that. The next question is.
Venkat, one moment. So this one, to add on to that, see,
Yeah.
for example, I hold a visa. Let's assume I hold a B1, or B2 visa, okay, for that matter. And my tourist visa or business visa is expiring on 12th of August today, okay?
Okay.
So even today, I can enter the US, I can go and present myself at the port of entry and request the visa officer to allow me, or the CBP official, to permit me into the country. And they can, at their discretion, permit me up to a period of 6 months from the date of entry into the US. Okay. So even though my visa is expired on the 12th, so 13th, I won't have a valid visa on my hand. But still, I can continue to stay in the US for as long as the I-94 is valid.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for that. Sandhu, the second question is, does a 10-year visa mean that I can stay in the US for 10 years?
I wish we could do that. Unfortunately, no. A 10-year visa means that during the 10-year period, it permits you to board the flight or any vessel or a car, and if you are in Canada, to go to the port of entry and knock on the door and say, hey, please let me in. So that is all it does. And again, the duration of stay invariably will be maximum of 6 months on a B1, B2, because 10-year means B1, B2 visa, maximum of 6 months. And sometimes, in very limited exceptions, they give it up to a year. But invariably, it is for a period of about 6 months.
Thank you.
Up to 6 months. Okay, it can be even for 15 days. Okay, depending upon the discretion of the visa officer.
The third question, we are an IT consulting firm in Mumbai. A lot of our clients are looking for skilled Indian IT personnel. We are not able to send them. When will this situation end?
Okay, so here it is not clear on what type of visa they are planning to send. Okay, it can be a H visa, it can be a L visa if they've been working, or whether they are looking to send them on a B1, B2 visa, B1 visa basically. If it was a H or L, they cannot send them if they don't already have a visa. They cannot apply for and send them until 31st of December 2020. Okay, if it is B1 visa, then we have to really see what these people will be doing in the US, because these professionals are not permitted to, give any productive employment in the US. On a business visa, you can travel to the US if you have to attend some meetings or a seminar or board meetings or stuff like that. Okay, but they're not allowed to provide any information or provide any work which is productive employment or take any salary in the US. So sometimes people say, hey, I'm sending my employee there for 3 months and they don't work at all. They won't be doing any productive employment, and these salaries will be very high here. So it is very difficult for people to believe that people with such high salaries are sent to the US for 3 months, not to do any productive employment, just sit there. Okay, so we have to be very clear in what we are doing. And if it is a B1 visa, that visa is not for you to send somebody to the US to work. But if it is a H or L visa that you're talking about, then you have to wait until December, and hopefully things will get better. We don't know how difficult things are going to be made. Hopefully it will not. But we'll have to wait and see what happens. So B1, B2, if they already have it, they can still travel for purposes authorized by law, because they cannot, if they just have some tech meetings to attend, or they have to gather some information, or they have some business leaders to sign contracts. Yes, they can do that, but not for technical work that they can provide.
The fourth question, I think it should be more addressed to the US universities, but then is it going to be only online classes for this semester in all US universities? That's the fourth question.
The slide has not changed.
Sudhakar, please. Sudhakar, yes. Yeah. Okay. Is it only online classes for this semester in all US universities?
Okay. So like you said, this is more university specific question, but what we have seen is like many universities, especially after the clarity given by the eyes have moved to a hybrid model wherein they have online classes as well as in-person classes, because if you don't have an in-person class, then they are not eligible for a F1 visa, and even if they have an F1 visa which has been issued, they cannot travel and knock on the door because they will not be let into the country. So most universities have moved to a hybrid model which requires in-person classes. So it is important that the student gets a clear letter from the university whichever they are applying for, and having clarity on what they have. If they have a schedule, detailed schedule, that's even better. But they should have a written confirmation saying that they have a hybrid class, and at least a percentage of the classes which are going to come online. In person is very important, because without in-person classes, initial visas will not be approved, and even if it's approved, they cannot enter the US. So, and most of the universities now are offering only hybrid model because of this reason.
Thank you. Sudhakar, next question. I got my US visa in January. I'm planning a trip late this year or early next year to meet some of our customers. Should I take a return ticket?
Of course, if you're traveling, I'm assuming that this gentleman is traveling to the US, on a business visa, because they want to travel. They are B1, B2. So on a B1, B2, if you don't have a return ticket, you're asking for trouble.
Okay.
Okay, because you are establishing that you're going to the US for a temporary purpose. Okay, so if you don't have a return ticket, then there is a question arises whether, hey, is this person really coming in for a temporary purpose, or what is his plans? What are the plans? So it's very important that you travel with a return ticket with a specific date written on it, not an open ticket. So without that, they could be taken into secondary immigration, and they can actually ask for a lot of information at the port of entry, and they can take your laptop, they can take your phone, they can run the software, and they have a means to obtain a lot of information about you from your thing. And if they ask you for those devices, you have to give it. You don't have a choice. And if they find any information which is discriminatory or different from what has been stated, then they will send you back, and you will have long-term consequences also. So when you have a return ticket, everything is clear. They know that, okay, you're coming in for a specific purpose authorized by law, and you have a genuine intentions to travel back. And also, don't ask for too long a duration, because it's very important that if your business meetings is for a week, maybe 10 days, if you want to go to visit your friends and come, it's fine, but not for 1 month. But you should have a proper itinerary, what you plan to do, and you'll be able to explain it to the officer at the port of entry. That's very important.
Thank you. Thank you. Sudhakar, next question, please. I had a valid US visa which expired in April 2020. Do I automatically qualify for a renewal?
Okay. You qualify for visa, the Dropbox, okay, but the visa is not automatically qualified, okay.
Okay.
So all you can do is you can go and present your you can drop off your passport once the consulate becomes functional, of course. You can, within 1 year from the date the visa expired, you can go, or your representative, you have to first complete the visa application online, and then you have to go into the ustraveldocs.com/in. That's the website for the US consulates in India. So you have to create a profile, pay the visa application fee, and generate the Dropbox letter, which can be done up to 1 year from the date of expiry of your previous visa. And then you can send a representative along with the DS-160 confirmation appointment letter, the Dropbox letter, and they can go and present it, and the visa will be processed. But at the discretion of the visa officer, they can ask you to come in person. So it is not an automatic renewal of the visa. It's only, you're only eligible for the Dropbox. And if everything is in order, the officer will issue the visa. If they want to meet you in person, or if they have some clarifications required that is needed, then they will ask you to come in person for a visa interview. So it is not automatic renewal. It's only automatic eligibility for a Dropbox.
Next question. My old passport has already expired. My visa to travel to the United States is still valid, but in my expired passport, do I need to apply for a new visa with my new passport?
Okay. See, as long as the name is the same, as long as the date of birth is the same, you're good. You can just carry both the passports, present the visa on the old passport along with the current passport, and enter the US. Okay, so if there is any change in the name or if there is any change in the date of birth, then you will have to apply for a visa. Otherwise, there is no problem.
Okay. Thank you. Next one, please. My visa will expire while I am in the United States. Is there a problem with that?
Okay. Here again, it is not clear what visa it is. Okay. So if it is a H-1B, for then if the visa expires, within 1 month or 2 months after entering the US, then the person will have to file for an extension, because that is when they will, the I-94 also will be issued only for that duration. Okay. So they'll have to, apply for an extension within the expiry of the visa. Okay. Of the not visa, but I-94, because visa is different from the I-94. So for H-1B, why I'm telling is invariably the I-9 visa will be almost valid for the duration of the I-797, and the I-94 will also be issued only for the validity of the I-797 unless they had an extension that has been approved. And if you're a student, when you enter the US, they will be giving you something called as duration of status, which is called D/S. Okay, as long as you maintain the status as a student, you can continue to stay in the US. So there's no problem at all. So even if the visa has expired, doesn't matter, because as I told you, visa is only for you to enter the US. Once you enter the US, the validity of the visa does not matter at all. The validity of the I-94, that is what authorizes you to stay in the US. So validity of that is what matters after you enter the US. And if you're on a tourist visa, as I told you, even if on the last day of the expiry of the visa, you can still enter the US, and you can still be granted a stay for up to 6 months. So expiry of visa is not really, it's not something you should be concerned about. Expiry of the status, the I-94. And if you're a student, you have to maintain the status. You have to be enrolled in the courses. You have to continue to maintain as a student, because earlier the regulations were very relaxed. If you're a student and you're in the US, even if you are, roaming around, you're not studying, nobody bothered. Okay, unless the US, the enforcement caught hold of you, or if you file for an extension or something, and that is where they found that you are not maintaining your status, till then you are a free bird. You can do anything you want. But now they made it very strict. If you are not enrolled for the courses correctly, if you are not maintaining, the credits, required credits, then you fall out of status, and then it becomes a nightmare. So it's a totally different scenario now. So the status is more important than the visa.
Next question is, my visa application has been refused in January 2020. When can I apply again?
Okay, here the nature of refusal is not clear. There are different types of refusal. Okay, one can be refused. I'm just to name a few, because there is lots to cover, but name a few. One is the most common visa refusal is 214B. Somebody applies for a tourist visa or a business visa or a student visa. They can be refused under 214B, because the presumption of law is that you will go and settle down in the US and you are not eligible for a visa. So that is the presumption of law. Okay, so that is the most common refusal, 214B. If that is the case, you can apply any number of times as soon as you can also, because each time you apply, they are going to get the $160. So even if you want to apply 10 times, they're fine. But unless there is any change in the circumstances from the previous application, or unless you have some new information which you have to present to the visa officer, then there's no point in going on reapplying and wasting your time and money. So it's important you see how best you can improve your chances of getting the visa honestly, and then you can apply for the visa again. But there is no restriction on when you can apply. Some people have misconception that after 1 or 2 applications you cannot reapply. It's not like that. You can apply any number of times for a 214B refusal, as long as you believe that you have some new information that you can present and get the visa. And if it's a 221G, then you have to respond to that. If they have some misrepresentation done and then they give a 212A6C1, that's a different category of refusal. If that is the case, then you will have to apply with a waiver. So it depends upon the type of refusal. You can apply anytime, but you have to present relevant information based on the type of visa.
Okay. Senthil, this is the last question that I have. I have a non-immigrant visa that will expire soon, and I would like to renew it. Do I need to go through the whole visa application process again?
Okay, so this again depends upon the type of visa. There are most types of visas are eligible for the Dropbox. So they don't have to go through the entire process. Most cases, they have to just complete the visa application form and present 1 or 2 supporting documents depending upon the category of visa with a copy of the most recent visa, and they can drop it off, or their representative can drop it off. And if everything, once the consulate is functional, and if everything goes well, the visa will be issued and the passport will be sent back. If the visa officer feels that they have to talk to the applicant or they need more information, then they'll advise the applicant to come for a personal interview. So that so technically it depends on a case-to-case basis whether he has to go through the entire application process again. If he's lucky enough, through the Dropbox itself, it will be renewed, and some cases they may be asked to come in person.
Thank you, Sandil. Sandil, how would you like to take this forward? We have some questions in the chat box. Would you like to have a look at that?
Let me see if I am able to pull that. How much time do I got? Because 5:50 already.
You have another, Sandil, you have another 5 minutes, and then
5 minutes. Okay, sure. I'm just going to go scroll through some questions and see. Okay, Mr. Srinivasan has said when the system of getting tough with visa procedure will be eased. We really hope if there's a change in the administration, things may get a little better. I'm a producer, and the 221G Ritesh, Mr. Ritesh, I think his battery had died out, but we have to see why it has been pending for 2.6 years, because it's a really long time. Okay, so we can see what we can do about it. Okay, so that is, he can be in touch with us. Maybe Mr. Venkat can share the details of our coordinates, or murthiindia.com. If you just go into murthiindia.com, you can just put an email. That's a contact us box. You can just write to us, and we'll be happy to help. First, we'll see what is the situation, and if we can help, then we can take you in the right direction. Again, Srinivasan TGL, my in-laws to visit their daughter by pen for family reason for 3 months visit. Whether any urgency matters can be allowed to send September end. So I'm not sure if the person already has the visa, then yes, they can travel. Okay. So that is something which we can do. And 1 minute. Okay, and so June 30th, there was an update on proclamation stating for an individual not subject to the proclamation, then neither the individual nor the individual's spouse or children will be prevented from obtaining visa due to the proclamation. However, we don't hear this being followed by the consulate. Ideally, H1 stuck in India can stamp as the H4 is in the US exempt. What are your thoughts? See here, if as of now the consulate is still closed, okay, so only when they start functional, we'll be able to really do something about it. But if the H1B holder is not subject to the proclamation, either if you was in the US on the June 24, or if you had a valid visa, then H4 should be issued. If they are not issuing it, then you can contact us. We can try to figure it out.
there is one question from Amit Gupta, which we were discussing this afternoon.
Amit, I applied for a visa in February, and the date was 19th of March, and I got email due to COVID. All appointments have been cancelled. Made the payment on 2nd of May 2019. See, unfortunately, we have written to the consulate and we have not had any clarity on this issue, because see, for no fault of us, we are not able to attend the visa. We have paid the fees, and if the consulate was functioning, we would apply for the visa. So it is fair for them to extend the validity of those visa, because during this lockdown period, if any visa, receipt fee got expired, they should extend it. But unfortunately, as of now, even when we wrote to the help desk, they said that you have to wait. We have not made a decision yet. So I'm hoping that there will be, some extension. Otherwise, I think all the applicants should join and file a suit, because a lot of money is involved, and I think they should extend it. That will be fair, and I think they will have some, provision for that.
There is one from
Change.
Chandan Ram.
Chandan Ram.
Yeah.
So there is generally it's better to wait for at least a 90-day period before you do anything, because it should not be like you had a preconceived intent to go and change the status. Though it's a dual intent visa and it's fine, but it's better that you consult with one of our attorneys in the US before you do that, because we practice consular matters, we focus on the consular matters. But then, it's important that you make the right decisions, do the right thing, because if it's preconceived, then again, at the time of applying for the H4, what intentions you have. If you really are wanting to go there and then situation change after you go back, then it's a different story.
There's one from Pratik.
Another common thing is like if we see US workers, right, when they come to India, what happens is they continue to work on remotely. Okay, so whether that is permissible, a lot of people asking. See, H1B regulations are controlling you only as long as you are on US soil. So the moment you're outside of the US soil, it doesn't really matter whom you work for, what you do. So if you continue to work for that, and then when everything eases out, you have to go back, you can always do that. So as far as H1B regulations are concerned, you're not, they don't govern your employment here in India during that time. Okay, and my wife is waiting for F2 since March, when the consulate was closed. The original appointment was on March 16th. Since India have started approving emergency appointment, but we still have no news on F2. So again, F2 visas. See, F1 visas are eligible for emergency appointment, and when that the dependent is accompanying them, that's a different story. But on their own F2, they may have to wait for the regular operations to resume.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sendal. Ladies and gentlemen, we come to the close of this program. We have with us Mr. Ramakrishna and Mr. Paul. Paul, would you like to say a few words as we close this program? Paul?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Yeah, there's a delay when you go to switch on the microphone, but no, it's a nice meeting, and I appreciate, like you say, participating, and certainly, like I said before, there's a lot of there's a negative atmosphere out there, and because we've all been put through a shock, but ultimately we have a choice of moving on or dwelling in the negative. So I think it's good to dwell on the positive and look for the opportunities that are out there. And if we do that, we'll be okay, because ultimately we have to move with the times, and we have to change as things move forward. And there's always opportunity for those that are looking for it. So I wish everybody that's come to the webinar today all the best of luck, and keep pushing forward and do well.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you very much for that. Can I request Mr. Ramakrishna Garu for your remarks, please? Mr. Ramakrishna Garu?
I think
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes, please. Welcome. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you for clearing a lot of doubts and making the session more meaningful. I hope, especially visa area, a lot of people has a lot of doubts and a lot of complex issues, in my opinion. Sometimes the people doesn't understand the way especially US visa directions. Thank you for giving me opportunity to share my thoughts.
Thank you again, Mr. Ramakrishna Garu. That was very nice of both Mr. Ramakrishna Garu and Mr. Paul to have taken time out of this. Thank you so much, participants. Kendall, a final note from you?
Yeah, so see, whatever is happening with the immigration is, temporary. They can't stop people from coming into the US. US is a land of immigrants. They need us, so they need immigrants to come in. So it's just a matter of time before the floodgates open, and I'm sure that things will be back to normal. It's just a matter of time. So all of you just hang in there. Don't lose hope. Things will be back to form.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the delegate. We'll be having the contact of all the panelists, and we hope to take this forward. Thank you all. Thank you for your interest. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, again.
Thank you. Bye.